follow something that you're good at, that you can make a stable amount of money. Follow your passion once you've built your wealth.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of As Unexpected podcast. Today, I get to talk to someone whose work, just to me, is deeply inspiring. Not only is his work inspiring, but he's got some incredible personal stories to share as well. Tyler Wood, thank you for joining me today. Can you please introduce to our audience your background, your life, and your current work?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here, and pleasure to get better acquainted with you, and absolutely love Semester at Sea. My background, actually, I spent 20 years in the hedge fund industry, always dealing with brilliant trade thesis, from working with floor traders with a minimum of 25 years on the floor to building out portfolios of algorithms to ultimately building supercomputers and co-locating at the exchanges. And so the thesis really is this transition to a circular economy. And I'm the vice president of circularity with the Gravitas Infinitum and our holding company and Carbotura. And we were awarded top 50 most innovative new companies in the world out of 130 countries twice. And then we got $10 billion of funding commitments to deploy globally. And so we're on the search worldwide to invest between $200 million to $2 billion or more into local and regional economies to help them transition to a circular economy. And so we're manufacturers. We're not like a typical waste company. We're really manufacturers of renewable nanomaterials. And so, yeah, that's been a big transition, but ultimately kind of the same thing, because I'm dealing in the thesis of opportunity and this linear extractive kind of global supply chain is all based on scarcity, and circularity is based on abundance. So we're going to have an exciting future for opportunities towards circularity and lowering our trash. I mean, ultimately, waste is our resource to us, and it's not a pollutant.
Yeah, there's so much in what you said. Hedge fund to circular economy. That seems like a big jump, but you've described it well in terms of really looking for the right kind of investment opportunity. But you are switching from what was probably in the arena of linear economy, public investing, to circular economy. I think for our audience, if you could explain what a circular economy is, that would be really helpful.
Sure. So it's basically, there's a global report that comes out that measures the total global GDP and how much of it is circular. Circular meaning that there's an infinite loop of money materials. There's zero waste involved in that process. And only 7.3% of the global GDP in the latest report is circular. So it tells us two things, that one, we suck at it, but two, there's tremendous room for improvement. And in that room for improvement, we're transitioning from essentially scarcity, where there's finite supply and a decline rate of production, to unlimited proven reserves and no decline rate of production of materials that is in tune with modern lifestyles and society. And so what we look at it as a zero waste, no pollution, whether it be in the air, water, soil, and essentially our mission is in a lot of cases to untrash the planet. But what we are looking to do is, as a manufacturer, to go to places that are open to manufacturing, infrastructure, workforce development, whether there's some rail or port or sufficient highways, or if it's a destination where you can keep high quality engineering talent, because we're not picking through trash, we're picking through molecules. We can remediate landfills and everything else. But from a circular economy standpoint, is essentially a zero waste, zero pollution environment. And climate change. It's going to change. But if we can stop polluting, we're all going to be the better for it, because that's what's causing the problem is our pollution. So, it's a much easier way path forward. And I kind of take a bit of, Arnold Schwarzenegger's approach to just be like, just stop polluting. And then, that makes sense, because you get in a conversation about climate change and you get in a fist fight, with a family member or something. And that's not productive in any capacity. But just to stop polluting just makes sense to everybody.
It makes perfect sense. And this is a brilliant topic. It's something that I have certainly studied and taught before, but not applied as you're doing, certainly in the theoretical, but I think also in the practical sense. Any material that's going out and not reused has value. So it's actually a very inefficient system when you see pollution, right? It's a hyper inefficient system. So when you're talking about opportunity for investment, you're talking about recapturing value that's not otherwise used. Is that one way to frame it?
We did an analysis, and we're throwing per ton of waste in the United States, it's about $42,000 of input costs per ton of waste. So you can imagine, the overwhelming amount that we are wasting. Yeah. And we're just either throwing it into a landfill or burning it and calling it that's the way it's done. And so we are an opposite to all that. In fact, we can remediate landfills or just take direct tipping of various waste streams, all waste streams, except for, radioactive and live munitions. We got to draw the line somewhere. But ultimately, we can find value at the atomic level of those elements within waste. And oftentimes, carbon is the predominant, element within waste. And our predominant output is graphite, which is 99.9% carbon. And graphite is interesting because, no one really knows about other than it's in your pencils or something, but it's actually, there's more graphite in a lithium ion battery than there is lithium. And there's like 200 pounds of graphite on average for every electric vehicle. And the United States hasn't produced any of that for decades. And China controls over 90% of the anode grade graphite production. And so if you think about sustainability and resilience, which a lot of politicians would, mention over and over again in every speech, but they don't talk about circularity because that involves math. And so we do that part and break everything down from the mathematical engineering mass balances of, waste to circular manufacturing. And that's really the transition, and really one of the biggest transitions that we'll be able to make as a civilization over the coming years and decades that will help us, combat and become more resilient to climate change. But, oftentimes things like methane are overlooked, but that's over 80 times more potent than CO2 emissions. And that often comes from the landfills. And then you have these PFAS forever chemicals that have gotten into our food streams and our water streams and our rain. It's now in all of our blood. So we have these forever chemicals that are causing, disease in our families. And all of these things can be broken down. And so that's really what we're doing is we're finding, acute waste problems in major metropolis kind of locations and coming in saying, look, you commit the trash and we'll commit the cash.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect byline for sure. And I just love the simplicity of the business logic of a circular economy. You've explained it exceptionally well. I mean, it's right there. And that's why I would guess you can generate $10 billion of commitments to further your work.
Yeah. And now it's just not a matter of, searching for cash. And now it's just a matter of finding communities that will, actually walk the walk instead of just doing speeches of sustainability and resilience, actually bring circularity to the community. That moves the needle.
Yeah.
That doesn't kick the can down the road.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously the title of this podcast is called As Unexpected, and given my experience in leadership, and I'm sure yours as well, we make a lot of plans, we form a lot of strategies, which is always an important process. But in the end, it's not how we show up when things go just as smoothly as we planned, but it's how we show up for ourselves and others when things go as unexpected. So I would love if you would share a few stories of your own experience, Tyler, of how you showed up for yourself and for others when things have gone as unexpected.
Yeah, sure. Well, from a personal standpoint, one of my biggest challenges was approximately 10 years ago. And I had a beautiful, now 15-year-old son. And he was 4 at the time. And his mother, being Bangladeshi from a very powerful, influential family, took Maddie to Bangladesh and was like, good luck with your pieces of paper from America. Your son is Bangladeshi now. And, we were keeping in touch through Skype at the time. And he's like, Daddy, I just want to come back to Florida and never come back. And I'm like, I've got a problem. And so I had to basically fly over solo to Bangladesh, not really knowing anybody whatsoever. And, finding my son and building assets and relationships on the ground and developing trustworthy relationships with people. And ultimately rescued my son and had to sneak out of the country on a Bangladeshi Biman Airlines migrant worker plane to Dubai in the middle of the night while my hotel room was being searched. And I left without any luggage, just with a backpack and my son, and snuck out of there. And so it was a extremely challenging situation. And then during that, from a professional standpoint, during that scenario, one of the primary companies that I was working with in the hedge fund industry had a technical problem and basically stopped, and that was a huge problem because I'm being able to work remotely is a key aspect of being in the hedge fund industry. As at least in my roles, I wasn't, making the trades, but I was building the relationships with the various investors around the world. But to have that happen while all that was going on, I was like, how could that be happening at the same time as my son's being abducted and all of these things compounding at the same time while I'm stuck in some, hotel with, bomb sensors at the front,
Wow.
and I was like, this is one challenging time of my life. And so looking forward, I find myself in situations where I'm like, well, this certainly doesn't suck as bad as that.
There you go. It's a perspective taking for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, people have to remember that's 11 years ago, right?
Yeah, that was 10, 11 years ago. This Halloween will be our 11-year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah. And the communication tools at that time, clearly we had the internet, and we may have been still calling it the World Wide Web. At that time, I'm not sure.
Well, people use Skype at that point, so no one does that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We weren't doing WhatsApp video calls, right? The tools we have now are exponentially better than what you had to avail yourself with when you're in Bangladesh and you're dealing with a hedge fund
Yeah. Yeah.
crash. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was monitoring things from my laptop, and I mean, I could see a lot of things from the trade aspect, but this was kind of the internal trading mechanisms of, you know, supercomputers trading global currencies. So it was a challenging time for sure. And, led to all kinds of, you know, uh, problems going forward. But ultimately, that was like the beginning of the end of my transition towards circularity and sustainable infrastructure, going from, I would say, speculative assets to productive assets. And that's a critical distinction, going from a speculative asset and to building a productive asset. And what we're doing with Carbotura is building productive assets that'll last, these communities generations, certainly outlive me. And I'm couldn't be more proud and honored to be a part of it.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesteratsea.org. Very cool. Let's go back to this sort of dual, sort of almost like phenomenological situation you're in, right? Can you share with our audience more about how you are showing up? Like how are you showing up at this time to find your way through these enormous challenges that you're facing? Not only as you reflect on it now, but can you recall how you found your way through that time period?
Yeah. Well, I guess I've been practicing yoga since 1998. So a lot of years in yoga and meditation, but sometimes you're in such a challenging situation that meditation you can't shake the overwhelming angst that's going on inside of you. So I was doing a lot of push-ups. And I was also swimming a lot of laps. I think that cardio aspect and physicality, improving my physicality, and that cardio has helped my mood and overall ability to manifest my intentions, I would say. And that was probably one of the key aspects. And then yoga was certainly helpful. After doing a couple hundred push-ups or swimming a bunch of laps, you certainly are able to calm down and do yoga and meditate and sleep, for that matter. And so those were some of the ways that I felt like I handled things. And then obviously, friends and family and support system and those types of factors are crucially important, just to feel connected to everybody. And I didn't feel like I was alone, even though I was in Bangladesh all alone, and all this, storm of issues were happening. But working through it, thankfully getting my son out of there. He was, just having him here and being able to spend our life together over these last years. I mean, he was born in Naples, and but he was going back and forth a couple of years, and then I felt that parental alienation happening, and I was like, "There's something going on here," and my spider senses were picking up some bad mojo, and I was right, and ultimately had to kind of live in Southeast Asia for a period of time, about half a year. I was kind of living over there just so I could be proximate to Bangladesh in case I had an opportunity to see him, right, or help out or visit or something. And it just wasn't working out. So, but I was living and working from Southeast Asia for a good part of a year, actually.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's I wrote a book about it and then published it maybe 4 or 5 years ago or something. It was cathartic, but I didn't want to get into the business of rescuing, abducted children. But I was certainly going to, give some pointers to some of the ways I went about solving the problem. and hopefully, helping other people that might be in a similar situation, um, you know, solve their problem. But ultimately, um, you know, I couldn't be more proud of being able to get him. And it was ultimately his courage to, like, I was like, he's just like, I want to go home. And I was just like, I'm trying, buddy, just hold on. And he wouldn't let go. He wouldn't let anyone take him out of my arms. And, we slept in a Bangladeshi police station overnight because they wouldn't let us go to our hotel. Hitmen were hired to, take me down. And we had basically a court meeting the following day after spending a night in this horrible situation in a Bangladeshi police station with all these like eyes kind of staring in. It's like, who's this tall white guy, in the middle of the freaking nowhere in the concrete jungle of Dhaka, Bangladesh. And in fact, the experience of being in these, developing countries wasn't as foreign to me because of my experience and my comfort level going from semester at sea and having these experiences and having that confidence and being able to cross cultures and develop connections with people allowed me to build the friendships that were necessary to get this mission accomplished. So, I mean, it all kind of built up from probably some of the leadership developed in my semester at sea days.
Wow, that's a powerful story. And I see the photo behind you, Bring Maddie Home. I'll certainly put the name of that book and link to it in the podcast notes to make sure people are aware of it. It sounds like an amazing read.
Yeah, so it's a good love story.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to something you said about how you got through it, because it just seems like such a natural connection to your work, recognizing that, I know it's going to be cliche, but it's so true. And I think it gets lost often that our body is a system. And you cannot you can't disconnect the physical from the emotional and the mental. And when you were under such incredible stress, you found a way to just fully embrace that systems connection. Make sure that stress was put through your push-ups, your swimming laps. Similarly, when we were in the pandemic and we were in a very difficult time here at the organization, my exercise increased, the way I pushed myself to try to get through that time. And it's just such an important habit that everybody get into, right? It doesn't matter what your exercise of choice is. It's just keeping the body healthy, which is all connected. And of course, your work is all systems based. So there's just this natural connection.
It's a lot of systems, and and even the systems necessary to transition to a circular economy. There's incredible, robust systems being integrated to, for that to happen. So everything that I've dealt with and all the hedge fund work is all very systems oriented, because it has to be replicatable. It has to be, you have to go forward in a way that is packaged that it can be replicatable for, one country or another country or another country, especially in what we're doing with our worldwide search for countries that want to transition to a circular economy. I know they talk about it, and it's been more and more a part of economic development for several countries, and in Europe and here in North America. And now it's, what we're doing is we're a leader in that circular economy transition. So it's exciting times for a lot of people. And I'm blown away with some of the discussions and the people that I have conversations with. But there are some of the people that have been in the waste management industry for a long time, and they may be trying to perfect a candle, but we're introducing the light bulb. So we're in a totally different world because they're in the industry of waste management, and we're not. That's just a feedstock to us. And so they're out trying to develop AI to sort garbage. And we're like, we're sorting molecules. So there's a lot more efficiency and scalability to what we're doing on a a mass scale. So there's such opportunity for the world economy as we get closer to this, and I look forward to kind of sharing it globally and sharing it, for my future adventures with Carbotura and with Semester at Sea.
Yeah. Almost like we need to find a different word other than waste.
Yeah, it's a resource. There's, when you are working in a world where there's zero waste and zero emissions, then waste is no longer waste. It's just a resource that's going to be reintroduced as a manufacturing feedstock. So it's it's really exciting. I mean,
yeah, super exciting.
As a civilization, we've been sustaining ourselves by converting nature into garbage.
Right.
So, to be able to kind of jump that Rubicon towards circularity is a huge step for humanity. And the people that jump on board quick and understand the benefits of that are going to reap some serious rewards. And then the other people are going to be swimming in their own garbage. And you're going to be like, well, I told you, but you wanted to wait.
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
Sorry.
So I want to share one quote with you that I think is very apropos to this conversation. It comes from a book that had a big influence on my own thinking. It was published posthumously in 2008. The author is Donella Meadows. She unfortunately died in 2001. And the quote's very short, but I think it just goes very fittingly to your work. It goes like this: purposes are deduced from behavior, not from rhetoric or stated goals.
Yeah.
How do you react to that?
Well, I would say that my purpose is certainly defined by the behaviors of our civilization of turning nature into garbage for the last couple thousand years. And that because of that behavior, my purpose is to create a circular economy for the whole world. And so that certainly, that nips it in the bud right there for how I see, my purpose is being translated from this wasteful behavior that we've had as a civilization for a long time. And none of it has been identified. I mean, if we all separate our trash into all these little buckets and there's more and more buckets being added. And, but the circular rate, that circularity percentage isn't going up, it's going down. So it's not working. We have to understand that what we understand about recycling is that it's a failed marketing campaign. It's not a solution. Yeah. And so what we're doing is we're not calling it recycling. We're calling it regenesis. And because it's breaking everything down to their base molecules and atoms. And so we can get those out there and create the raw materials for the next stage of modern civilization. Producing things like graphite or even graphene, which was a Nobel-winning discovery about 14 years ago and discovered over 20 years ago. And it's a nanosheet, first two-dimensional material that came off of a piece of graphite. And they started studying the characteristics of that graphite. And it's 200 times, or that graphene, it's 200 times more stronger than steel. And it's 4 times more efficient than lithium and 10 times more efficient than copper. Yet it's flexible and light as a feather. So all of the things in like aerospace, automotive, batteries, semiconductors, supercapacitors, solar panels, paints, concretes, fabrics are all going to start adopting graphene as an additive to make it better, stronger, faster, quicker, lighter, in everything. But right now it's an extremely expensive material to manufacture. And so we'll be introducing, industrial volumes of graphene and various types and, characteristics, as well as various types of graphite and other carbon nanomaterials.
I am so excited to hear everything you've said. You're working on the edge. but you're working on the edge where real opportunity exists. We're at time, and I would love if you would just finish off by saying, hey, if there's any young adults out there, you're on your own leadership journey, what's that one piece of advice you would give them as they are looking at their own professional career paths?
I listened to Scott Galloway, and I would say, follow your passion. And I was like, well, was probably said by someone that was already rich. I would say, follow something that you're good at, that you can make a stable amount of money and create a family and then you can take some of your wealth and follow your passion once you've built your wealth. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. It is a hard slog, and that is a difficult pathway to go on. And then there's other pathways that can, create tremendous benefits for you and your family and your friends. And that oftentimes it might be a little bit more mundane than, solving the world's trash crisis. That is not an easy path to go out and solve, because you've got these incumbent, waste heads that, want to block you every step of the way. You've got regulatory capture, you've got corporate capture, you've got all kinds of things trying to block innovation or steal it for that matter. And so, there's, go out there, take advantage of something that that you can make a reasonable income and make some wealth and get some comfort level there. And then you can start doing additional things, make your money work for you, start investing, start doing, smart things with your money. And then it makes a more fuller package when you're older in life and you want to start taking some, taking greater, maybe greater risks, because you already have a nest egg that'll satisfy you for forever. So just a word of caution for that, for the entrepreneurs out there, or the people in going to college. There's a lot of opportunities. AI is going to make a lot of things obsolete, from coding to all kinds of stuff. So the landscape of opportunity is going to be completely different of what you thought you were going to do over the last 5 or 10 years, especially if it dealt with, high levels of training and costs and education, because AI is displacing the smart jobs. They're not displacing people that can, do manufacturing or do, important service jobs that we need to be building in this country. So that's probably my advice for the youth.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I hope we get to meet in person sometime relatively soon. Thanks for your wisdom, your stories. This is going to be awesome for our audience. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Pleasure.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org.